Welcome back to Art with Marsha. I'm excited today as we move into section 4A. This is the beginning of the green family. These are a lot of colors that are more nature focused. If you haven't been here all along, this is part of a series on the ultimate watercolor palette that I created with AI. AI researched different pigments, different colors, different manufacturers to decide what the perfect colors were for a palette. So as I look back at the palette now, it's really starting to feel complete because we've worked our way through the beautiful yellows, those vibrant reds, some rich violets, and an incredible range of blue. Weren't they amazing? Now we're arriving at another favorite section because these colors bring nature to life. Today's paints remind me of hiking through a quiet forest after a spring rain, especially back home in Letchworth Park. It's a beautiful natural park with lots of trees and lots of hiking trails, and it's just beautiful being there. And these colors would fit perfectly with some of those paintings of pictures that I've taken there. They also have sunlight shining through fresh leaves, or moss-covered rocks beside a stream, or even just peaceful walks through my local botanical garden. I think one of the reasons I enjoy painting landscapes so much is because nature is never just one shade of green. Every tree, every leaf, and every blade of grass has subtle shifts in the color that make the scene feel alive. And that's exactly why these colors earn a place in the ultimate AI palette. Some of them are wonderful right out of the tube, while others become truly extraordinary when you begin mixing them with the colors we've already added to our palette. So, are you ready to get started on our last row of colors? Let's move into these beautiful greens of nature. Beautiful greens of nature. The first 6 we're going to cover today are green gold, undersea green, sap green, cascade green, olive green, and raw sienna. So first up, we have Green Gold by Daniel Smith. And if I could choose just one color that really captures the feeling of sunlight shining through the leaves, it would probably be green gold. It isn't really a traditional green, but it's not really a yellow either. It lives somewhere between. Whenever I use it, my paintings instantly feel warmer and more alive. This pigment uses PY129, which is green gold. It is transparent. It's a warm temperature. There's no granulation to it. And it stains medium, so it'll have a little bit of lift, but not a lot. And it has excellent light fastness rating. So one of the things I love most about green gold is its incredible luminosity. Even a very light wash, it seems to glow from the paper. It makes it perfect for suggesting sunlight is filtering through foliage or warm highlights on the fresh spring leaves. Although it's beautiful by itself, I think this color really shines when it's used as a mixer. It's one of those paints that quietly improves almost every landscape mixture. I especially like using it for those backlit foliage, spring leaves, sunlit grass, botanical paintings, pears, and green apples, wildlife, and garden greens. Some of my favorite color combinations include mixing it with French ultramarine for beautiful natural olive greens, burnt sienna for realistic woodland foliage, and quinacridone gold for late summer grasses, or indanthrone blue for a deep forest shadow. One thing I appreciate about green gold is that it helps me paint light. Not bright color, but light itself. That's a subtle difference, but once you begin using this pigment, you'll understand exactly what I mean. It's one of those paints that quietly makes every landscape a little more believable. So we've looked at one of the brightest, most luminous greens in the palette, but now we're going to move on to something completely different. This next color is one of my favorite convenience mixtures because it almost paints a landscape all by itself. And now we move on to a really surprising color, Undersea Green by Daniel Smith as well. So if you've watched many landscape painters, you've probably seen this color appear again and again. And there's a very good reason for that. So Undersea Green looks remarkably natural, straight from the tube. It already contains a subtle variation that we usually spend time mixing ourselves. I found that this also works good in water scenes and some of those deeper colors to bring that green into the blue water. It uses pigment codes PB29 and PO48. PB29 is French ultramarine and PO48 is quinacridone orange. It is semi-transparent. It has a cool temperature. It has a medium to heavy granulation that you'll just love when you use it. It's low to medium staining, so again, it won't lift real good. But then there's a light fastness of excellent. And what makes this color so fascinating is that it is a convenience mixture. Instead of using a single pigment, Daniel Smith combined two pigments that naturally separate as the paint dries. And that's where the magic happens. You'll notice tiny variations of blue, green, and earthy tones appearing throughout the wash. Those natural shifts create texture and looks incredibly convincing in landscapes. It's almost like nature painted it for you. It's one of my favorite colors, again, for evergreen trees, the forest floor, moss-covered rocks, woodland paths, shrubs, landscape backgrounds, and botanical shadows, along with those greenish blue waters. Some of my favorite mixes include quinacridone gold for beautiful autumn foliage, burnt sienna for woodland shadows, buff titanium for really muted, beautiful sage greens, and raw sienna for soft, natural vegetation. One thing I really appreciate about Undersea Green is that it removes some of the guesswork from landscape painting. Instead of mixing several pigments every time I need a natural green, I can start here and make small adjustments depending on the season or the lighting. That's one of the reasons it has become such a favorite among landscape artists. It saves time while still producing beautiful, believable color. So we've just talked about two greens that are completely different in personalities. Green gold is all about light and warmth. Undersea green is all about texture and natural complexity. Our next color is probably one of the most familiar greens in watercolor. In fact, there's a good chance it was included in the very first watercolor set. We have sap green, and this one was selected for Winsor & Newton Professional Paints. Sap green has been a favorite of landscape artists for generations, and honestly, it's easy to understand why. It's one of those colors that's ready to use the moment it touches our paper. You don't have to spend time mixing the perfect green for a tree or a meadow. You can simply load your brush and start painting. That's one of the reasons this color has remained so popular for so many years, even outside of watercolor. The pigment information is PG 36 and PY 110. PG 36 is phthalo green yellow shade, and PY 110 is isoindoleone yellow deep. It is transparent. It is a warm temperature. There's no granulation. It's medium to high staining, and it has excellent light fastness. And one thing I appreciate about the Winsor & Newton professional version is how balanced it is. Some sap greens can look overly bright or artificial, but this version has a warmth that makes it feel so much more believable in nature. It's one of those paints that works beautifully straight from the tube, especially when you're painting trees or shrubs, grass, garden scenes, nature journals, botanical studies, landscape sketches. It's just so many things in nature that it would be good for. I also enjoy using it as a starting point for mixing. Adding just a little bit of burnt sienna creates a beautiful muted green for late summer landscapes. Mixing it with quinacridone gold produces warm sunlit foliage. And when I want a deep evergreen shadow, I'll combine it with Payne's Gray or Undathrone Blue. Although I enjoy making my own greens, I also appreciate having a dependable, convenient green in the palette. Sometimes you're painting outdoors. Sometimes the light is changing quickly. Sometimes you simply want to enjoy painting instead of constantly mixing. Sap Green lets you do all that. And that's why it earned a place in the Ultimate AI palette. So far, we've explored greens that are familiar and dependable. Our next color is completely different. It's one of those paints that makes artists stop and watch as it dries because the real magic doesn't happen immediately. It happens over the next few minutes as the pigments begin to separate across the paper. So again, this is a Daniel Smith color called Cascade Green. So Cascade Green is one of the most fascinating paints Daniel Smith has ever created. Every time I use it, I'm reminded of why watercolor is such an exciting medium. You put down one color, and then almost like magic, it becomes several colors. And this one does it easily. So pigments are PB15, which is phthalo blue, and PBR7, which is burnt sienna, natural iron oxide. It is semi-transparent. It's a cool neutral. It's a heavy granulation, and medium staining, and excellent light fastness. So Cascade Green is another convenience mixture, but it behaves very differently from undersea green because as it dries, the pigments naturally separate, creating beautiful variations of blue-green, earthy green, and deep shadow tones. Those subtle shifts give landscapes an incredible sense of texture and realism without requiring extra work from the artist. If you try to mix it yourself using those two colors, it doesn't seem to come out the same as out of this tube. It's one of the favorite colors for painting pine trees or mountain forests, moss-covered rocks, woodland shadows. It's beautiful for reflections in a lake, weathered logs, and even some natural textures. So one thing I love about Cascade Green is that it almost paints evergreen trees by itself. Instead of looking flat, each brushstroke contains tiny variations that resemble the complexity we see in nature. Some of my favorite mixtures include burnt sienna for woodland textures, buff titanium for muted sage greens, Payne's Gray for dramatic forest shadows, and raw sienna for soft, natural earth tones. This isn't a color I'd recommend using for every leaf in a painting. Instead, think of it as a specialty landscape color. Whenever I want texture, atmosphere, and now unmistakable watercolor character, Cascade Green is almost always finding its way onto the palette. So we just explored one of the most dramatic granulating greens in watercolor. Our next color is much quieter. It's softer, more subdued, and it's one of those colors that helps make landscapes feel believable. So next up is Olive Green by Schmincke. Olive Green is one of those colors that quietly earns its place in a palette. It may not be the first tube that catches your eye in an art store, but once you start painting landscapes, you'll find yourself reaching for it again and again. It's a wonderfully natural green that helps tie all of your bright colors together. It uses pigment codes PG36, which is phthalo green yellow shade, and PBR25, that is benzimidazole brown. It's transparent. It is warm color temperature. It's not granulating. It's medium staining, but it has excellent light fastness. What I love most about olive green is its subtlety. Instead of shouting for attention, it quietly supports the entire painting. When you look out your window, you rarely see brilliant emerald greens covering every tree. Instead, I see muted olive tones, dusty grasses, weathered shrubs, and leaves that have been softened by changing seasons. That's exactly the feeling this color captures. So it's especially beautiful for, obviously, olive trees, but also eucalyptus trees, woodland paths, large prairie grasses, a lot of late summer landscapes, and just natural foliage. One of the reasons I included olive green in this palette is because it bridges the gap between bright greens and the earth colors. It helps create those subtle transitions that make landscapes feel believable. Some of the favorite mixes are with quinacridone gold for warm sunlit grasses, burnt umber for rich woodland foliage, Payne's gray for cool forest tones, and raw sienna for dry meadows and late summer fields. I also enjoy using olive green to tone down brighter greens. If a mixture feels a little too vibrant, you can add just a touch of olive green, and it often brings it back toward the colors we actually see in nature. Sometimes realism isn't about adding more color, it's about knowing when to soften it. So now we've reached the final color in today's episode, and although it isn't technically a green, I couldn't imagine ending this section without it. This paint serves as the bridge between our vibrant landscape colors and the rich earth tones that we're going to cover in Part 4B. It's one of the most versatile pigments in watercolor. So we're talking about raw sienna, and this one is from Schminke. So raw sienna is one of those timeless colors that quietly appears in almost every style of painting. It may never be the star of the show, but without it, so many paintings would feel incomplete. This warm golden color has been part of artist palettes for centuries, and it's easy to understand why. It uses pigment number PBR7, which is natural iron oxide. It's transparent, it's warm temperature, it has a very low granulation level, and a very low staining level, which makes it great for a lot of lift-off techniques, and excellent light fastness. So raw sienna has an incredible ability to unify a painting. It adds warmth without becoming overpowering. It creates natural light instead of the bright color. And because it's made from natural earth pigments, it blends beautifully with nearly every color we've added to our palette. This is one of the favorite colors for painting sandy beaches, or weathered buildings, animal fur, sunlit paths, desert landscapes, even portraits or vintage architecture. It's one of the classic watercolor mixtures is raw sienna with French marine, ultramarine, because together these two colors create an incredible range of soft grays, warm neutrals, and shadow colors. It's one of those combinations every watercolor artist should spend time exploring. I also love mixing it with Payne's gray for stone textures, for buff titanium for soft sand and driftwood, burnt sienna for glowing autumn landscapes, and green gold for warm grasses catching the late afternoon light. One of the things I've learned over the years is that earth colors often make the brightest colors look even better. Because when everything in a painting is vibrant, nothing really stands out. But when you balance those bright greens and blues with the quiet warmth of raw sienna, the entire painting feels more natural and inviting. It's truly one of those indispensable colors that belongs in almost every watercolor palette. And so, as we wrap up today's colors, we've noticed that nature is such a joy to paint. From the glowing brilliance of green gold to the beautiful texture of undersea green and cascade green, the dependable versatility of sap green, the subtle realism of olive green, and finally, the timeless warmth of raw sienna. Each of these paints adds something unique to the Watercolor Ultimate palette. What I hope you've noticed throughout this series is that we didn't choose these colors simply because they were beautiful. Each one was chosen because they have a purpose. Together, they give us the flexibility to paint almost any landscape, botanical subject, wildlife scene, or nature journal with confidence. In our next and final episode, we'll complete the Ultimate AI palette with rich earth tones, dramatic neutrals, and the finishing colors that bring depth, contrast, and harmony to every painting. I can't wait to share those final selections with you. If you've been following along throughout the series, thank you so much for spending this creative time with me. And if today's episode introduced you to a new favorite green, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Until next time, remember to slow down, notice the incredible colors in nature all around you, and enjoy every step of your watercolor journey. Happy painting.